Every morning, millions of people start their day with a small, seemingly harmless purchase, a $7 coffee. It doesn't feel like financial negligence, it feels normal, even deserved. But this daily habit represents a mindset that quietly erodes long-term wealth. Because over time, small, repeated spending choices compound in the same way investments do, just in the opposite direction. The average person who buys a $7 coffee each workday spends about $140 per month, or $1,680 per year. On the surface, that number doesn't look dangerous. It's easy to justify. It's just a coffee. I work hard. I can afford it. The problem isn't the coffee itself. It's the way we judge scale. When people evaluate money decisions, they often think linearly, not exponentially. A $7 expense seems fixed and minor, but its opportunity cost grows geometrically over decades. Let's break it into numbers. If you redirected just $200 a month, roughly that same daily coffee habit, into a basic, diversified index fund earning an average annual return of 7%, the math shows something interesting. In 10 years, it becomes about $34,000. In 20 years, roughly $104,000. And by the time you reach 40 years, that small daily choice would add up to over $480,000. Remove taxes and inflation, and the real term equivalent still exceeds $250,000. That's the hidden cost of just a coffee. What makes this problem deeper is that most people believe they're financially rational. They pay their bills, they save occasionally, they avoid big gambling or debt. Yet over 60% of adults in developed economies retire with less than 1 year of income saved. It's not because of dramatic mistakes. It's because of thousands of micro decisions that never felt like mistakes at the moment. This happens because our brains are built to notice major shifts, job changes, new expenses, large purchases, but they rarely register small, recurring outflows as threats. Behavioral economists call this mental accounting bias. You may track rent or car payments, but you mentally classify a daily coffee as too small to matter. Multiply that same thinking across dozens of habits, takeout lunches, unused subscriptions, random online purchases, and the long-term financial leak becomes substantial. Compounding works in both directions. The same mathematical principle that allows money to grow through reinvestment also amplifies losses when consistent spending replaces consistent saving. And once that compounding time is lost, it cannot be reclaimed. No investment later in life can catch up to the decades of foregone growth. The real issue is not the $7 coffee. It's the financial structure built around reactive consumption instead of intentional allocation. Most people aim to save what's left after spending rather than spend what's left after saving. That reversal seems small, but defines two entirely different trajectories of wealth. So when we talk about a $7 coffee costing $250,000 by retirement, it's not exaggeration, it's mathematics. The problem is that people rarely see the link between present comfort and future capacity. And until they do, they will continue to believe they are managing their finances prudently, even while the numbers prove otherwise. The core of this financial problem is not the $7 itself. It's the absence of structure, a missing system that links everyday financial behavior with long-term capital outcomes. Most people operate without one. Their financial life is reactive, shaped by habits, timing, and social norms rather than deliberate planning. Monthly income arrives, bills are paid, discretionary spending follows, and whatever remains becomes savings, if anything remains at all. Over time, this unstructured pattern normalizes constant consumption, not capital formation. There are three main causes behind this. First, income perception bias. People think in absolute numbers, not ratios. When income grows from $3,000 to $4,500 a month, spending tends to rise accordingly. Fixed costs expand, lifestyle upgrades appear, and discretionary spending scales to match psychological comfort. In the short run, it feels sustainable. In the long run, it eliminates the capacity to accumulate assets. Savings remain static while income multiplies. Second, behavioral reinforcement. Modern consumption rewards instant satisfaction. The outcome is visible, tangible, and emotionally positive. In contrast, saving or investing lacks immediate reinforcement. You can see and taste the $7 coffee, but not the incremental compounding of a mutual fund contribution. That asymmetry pushes the brain toward consumption, not accumulation, even among financially literate individuals. Third, the lack of automation and systemization. Financial discipline doesn't scale with willpower. It scales with structure. Without automatic transfers or defined saving mechanisms, each spending choice becomes a new decision point, and most people, when tired or rushed, choose convenience over optimization. Let's look at two practical examples. Example 1. Alex, 32, earns $4,000 per month. He tracks large expenses, rent, car payment, insurance, but not the smaller daily ones. $12 lunch, $7 coffee, $20 weekend deliveries. On paper, it seems balanced. In practice, that's $450 to $500 disappearing monthly without purpose. Over 20 years, if redirected at 7% return, that would exceed $250,000. But because Alex sees those outflows as comfort, he never connects them to opportunity cost. Example 2. A family with 2 children earns $8,000 per month. They maintain multiple subscriptions, streaming services, software tools, monthly product boxes, totaling around $150. They also buy most groceries through delivery apps with 20 to 25% markups for convenience. Small expenses, individually rational. But when aggregated and projected, that convenience inflates household costs by nearly $400 to $500 monthly, identical to a small investment portfolio's potential contribution. Over decades, that difference can mean retiring at 65 with $300,000 less capital. Both cases show that the problem doesn't come from lack of discipline, but from absence of a closed financial loop, a system that captures small, regular inefficiencies and redirects them. Standard advice such as spend less or track your budget rarely solves this because it relies on continuous attention and emotion control. People can manage that for weeks, not decades. Sustainable change requires replacing repeated mental effort with automated processes that remove choice from the equation entirely. The deeper insight is that small financial behaviors are not trivial. They aggregate into structural advantages or structural losses. The true difference between those who build wealth and those who drift financially isn't intelligence or luck, it's systemization. And until everyday spending connects seamlessly to long-term capital logic, the cycle of reactive consumption will keep repeating, one $7 decision at a time. When people struggle financially, despite earning a steady income, they often assume the cause is external: low wages, inflation, or market conditions. In reality, the root problem typically lies in decision-making, not income. The compounding effect of consistent but inefficient financial choices shapes long-term outcomes far more than short-term earning power. The first common mistake is ignoring small, consistent leaks. People analyze big events, buying a car, purchasing property, but overlook the recurring, low-volume outflows that silently erode potential capital. A $7 coffee, daily commute snacks, delivery fees, and unused digital subscriptions rarely feel significant individually. Yet at $10 to $15 a day, they represent roughly $300 to $450 monthly. Over a year, that's over $5,000. If invested at 7% annually, that single adjustment would yield over $100,000 in 20 years. The person who keeps those patterns instead generates nothing, not because of market failure, but because of choice inertia. The second mistake is focusing on income rather than cash flow structure. A raise of $1,000 a month will not improve financial stability if expenses expand by $1,000 simultaneously. Many households scale their lifestyle immediately after any income growth. Larger apartments, better phones, dining out more often. The pattern feels natural, but cancels the benefit of higher earnings. Without a predefined saving ratio, every raise simply resets the financial baseline upward. After 10 years, total income may have doubled, but accumulated capital remains nearly unchanged. The third mistake is treating saving as an afterthought. Most people save what remains after spending, instead of spending what remains after saving. This reversal sounds small, but determines whether saving occurs systematically or randomly. A person who invests $300 on autopilot every month over 30 years at 7% would accumulate around $365,000. Another person with identical income, saving only when convenient, tends to average less than a third of that amount, purely because irregular contributions break compounding growth. The fourth mistake is overestimating the ability to catch up later. Many assume they can start serious investing in their 40s or 50s once income stabilizes. But time, not money, is the largest multiplier in wealth accumulation. For instance, investing $200 per month from age 25 until 65 at 7% results in roughly $525,000. Delaying this by just 10 years reduces the outcome to about $244,000, less than half, even though the total invested amount differs by only $24,000. Missing early years costs more than any later contribution can recover. Over periods of 5, 10, 20 years, these decisions compound into structural differences. After 5 years, the impact is subtle. A few $1,000s of opportunity cost. After 10 years, the difference represents a deposit on a property. After 20 years, it defines whether one has investment income or still depends solely on salary. The long-term consequence isn't poverty, it's stagnation, continual work dependency, and the absence of capital leverage. The issue isn't insufficient earnings. It's the absence of a deliberate decision framework. Income is only potential energy. Financial outcomes depend on how effectively that energy is converted into assets rather than expenses. Until that conversion happens by design, through predetermined allocation and automation, higher earnings simply raise consumption, not security. That distinction explains why two individuals with identical incomes end up in opposite financial conditions 20 years later. One built a system, the other relied on good intentions. Solving this problem doesn't require higher income or complex investments. It requires a framework that converts consistency into growth. The key is to remove daily decision-making and replace it with automation, a system that allocates money before it is available for spending. That single shift changes the flow of capital, from reactive consumption to proactive investment. The most reliable method is a structured saving investment system built around 3 stages: automatic allocation, consistent compounding, and low-risk diversification. 1. Automatic allocation. Set a fixed percentage of income, for example 10 to 15%, to leave your checking account automatically each month right after salary deposit. The transfer should go toward an investment or savings platform you don't use for daily expenses. This first allocation rule inverts the default order of money management. You fund your future before funding your lifestyle. Over time, the process feels invisible because the remaining balance naturally defines your spending capacity. Behaviorally, it eliminates friction. There's no recurring willpower cost, no daily choice fatigue. 2. Consistent compounding. The allocated funds should flow into assets that grow slowly but steadily, such as broad market index funds or diversified exchange-traded funds, ETFs. The goal isn't to beat the market, it's to participate in long-term economic growth. Historically, broad equity markets generate around 7% annualized return over multi-decade horizons, net of inflation. A person investing $200 per month into such an index for 30 years would build a portfolio of roughly $245,000. Increase it to $400, and the total exceeds $490,000. The difference comes not from risk, but from consistency and time. Dollar cost averaging, investing a fixed amount regardless of market conditions, protects against volatility. Because you buy more units when prices fall and fewer when they rise, the average cost balances out over time. This mechanism transforms short-term fluctuations from threats into opportunities. It doesn't require prediction or timing, only patience and automation. 3. Low-risk diversification. Stability comes from spreading exposure. Instead of concentrating all capital in one sector or currency, use a balanced mix. About 70% broad stock index, 20% bonds or fixed income assets for stability, and 10% cash or near cash reserves. This ratio naturally smooths returns. Even in weak markets, downturns are temporary. Consistent contributions during such periods accelerate recovery because new purchases occur at lower prices. For short-term goals, use high-yield savings accounts or short-term bond funds that preserve liquidity. For anything beyond 5 years, equity exposure historically outperforms savings rates despite periodic declines. The system's strength is not in predicting outcomes, but in locking in a behavior pattern that produces reliable capital expansion. The logic is simple. Automation neutralizes emotion, compounding converts time into capital, and diversification minimizes risk. The person who builds this system once can largely step aside. The process self-maintains. Markets will rise and fall, but the mechanism, consistent allocation, remains stable. Over decades, that stability becomes a competitive advantage more powerful than any market forecast. In practice, this means redirecting a portion of ordinary consumption, such as that daily coffee, toward a pre-programmed savings infrastructure. It's not about deprivation, it's about redirection. The cost is invisible day to day, but measurable across decades. And unlike reactive spending, this system compounds in your favor 24 hours a day, even when you're not paying attention. Building wealth is not a mystery. It is a process built on 3 repeating elements: consistency, structure, and time. Everything discussed, the $7 coffee, the unnoticed spending, the absence of a system, leads to one simple framework that works for almost any income level. Once implemented, it runs quietly in the background, turning daily discipline into long-term stability. The system has 4 components. Automatic saving. Decide the percentage of your monthly income that will leave your account immediately after payday, ideally 10 to 15%. Treat this as a fixed expense, not a variable intention. Automated investment. Connect this savings flow to a low-cost diversified index fund or ETF. Use dollar cost averaging to smooth market volatility. Never pause contributions because of short-term news or uncertainty. Periodic review. Once every 6 or 12 months, check allocation ratios and adjust to maintain your intended balance. For example, percenti equity, dispercenti bonds, dispercenti cash. Reinvestment discipline. Allow all dividends and returns to reinvest automatically. Compounding only performs if the gains remain inside the system. That is the entire mechanism. It requires one setup phase and minimal maintenance. The outcome then depends on time, not constant effort. Let's translate this into time-based projections. After 1 year, the practical benefit is awareness and traction. You will have a functioning structure and a visible result, roughly $2,400 to $5,000 depending on your contribution size. It's not life-changing yet, but the system is operational, and spending awareness naturally improves. After 5 years, results become visible and measurable. A steady $300 monthly contribution, compounded at 7%, becomes about $21,000. More importantly, Your saving behavior is now habit-driven, not emotional. You make consistent financial progress without needing constant motivation. After 10 years, compounding begins to accelerate. That same $300 monthly contribution grows to around $52,000. At this stage, returns often match or exceed new contributions. Passive growth equals active effort. Your position shifts from dependency on income toward partial financial independence. Extend that timeline to 30 years, and the same disciplined system builds assets exceeding $350,000 to $400,000, depending on contribution size. This result does not rely on exceptional income or market timing, only structure and patience. What to do now? Open a separate investment account with low management fees. Set an automatic transfer that moves funds directly after each salary deposit. Choose one diversified index tracking instrument and enable automatic reinvestment. Treat this system as permanent infrastructure, not a temporary habit. Financial progress doesn't come from decisions made once. It comes from decisions that stop needing to be made at all. Automation transforms intention into inevitability. By replacing reactive consumption with systematic allocation, you create a perpetual upward trend. Not dramatic, but durable. 1 year from now, the difference will be small. 5 years from now, it will be measurable. 10 years from now, it will be structural. Through consistent execution, a simple system quietly rewrites your financial future. Not through luck or ambition, but through logic applied over time.